Now, 32 people have been arrested in Libya in connection with recent bomb attacks in the capital. All those detained are said to belong to a network of loyalists of the country's former leader Muammar Gaddafi and have reportedly been receiving financial backing from abroad. Let's discuss this further now. I'm joined by political analyst and Middle East consultant Peter Eyre, live on the programme. Good to see you today. As I'm sure you were listening to the story we're covering now, the weekend's attacks come 1 year after Tripoli fell into rebel hands. I mean, how stable is the situation now? The Deputy Interior Minister says Libya is awash with weapons.
Well, Libya is following the same trend as all the other countries where there was a forced regime. We have the same scenario in Iraq, as you know, almost on a daily basis in some cases. We have the same situation in Afghanistan, with or without the troops being there. We've got the situation in Libya, which was, again, a forced regime. And as you would expect, there will be breakaway groups because at the end of the day, although Gaddafi was a fraudster in many ways, he brought that country from the doldrums into great prosperity. And I think the true picture of Libya will reveal in the future that that lifestyle that they were accustomed to will be deteriorated, because at the end of the day, it's the West that want the oil, the West that want their banks in place to control the country.
Well, there are many that have drawn similar comparisons to that of the days of Saddam Hussein in Iraq, that he kept a certain amount of peace and prosperity, keeping the Sunnis and the Shia from basically tearing each other to pieces. Now we're seeing widespread tribal factions in Libya who are essentially continuing some, what might say, antiquated methods of rivalry. Now, the NATO-led war in Libya left all these heavily armed groups operating there. You talk about the future of the country. What is the near-time future of the country, do you think?
In the short term, it will persevere and plod along as it always has done, but we will see an increase in violence and bombing. What I found quite amazing, because, you know, I used to work in intel myself in NATO a long time ago, and I've become very observant, especially of photographs. And on the Al Jazeera network, there was a picture of the bombed out car. My first comment was that if it was a bomb that blew that car up, it was a very small bomb, and it's sitting on the tarmac, and there is no stain or burn marks on the tarmac. So obviously that car was planted for the photograph. So I have some grave concerns as to the authenticity of the Zionist-controlled media.
Well, you bring a mention to the Zionist-controlled media that might well have a fair amount of input and control with the defence industries and those who led the NATO campaign into Libya. In fact, I remember quite clearly former French President Sarkozy saying that he will lead the campaign, but his oil companies want to get a good 70% of the natural resources there. Do you think, though, at the end of the day, despite the fact that Gaddafi was drawn into the streets and murdered in quite a bloody manner, is Libya better off perhaps now? I mean, possibly?
I don't think so, because there was this great emphasis on humanitarian concerns for the country and so-called democracy, but they were only relying on the input from these small rebel breakaway groups that were totally undisciplined. We saw this also in Egypt, if you can recall, and then that went terribly wrong because the wrong government got in, and so the military is still trying to pull the strings there, and of course that's failing very fast. And I think we will see a natural rebellion occur, like is ongoing in Iraq, like is ongoing in Syria and Egypt, of these people, these tribal people you call them. Remember that Gaddafi himself was tribal, and he had a very, very devout following on the tribal side. So this is just a rehash of everything that's happening everywhere else. It's Western-led, and the only reason they went into Libya was because he was going to nationalise the oil company, and they couldn't get their fingers onto the banks, and so they had to do a regime change.
Peter Eyre, I wish we had more time for this. Political analyst and Middle East consultant. A great pleasure to have you on RT today. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon.